consultant. And I also train on CM, that is Service Integration and Management. I train on Six Sigma. I train on DevOps. As I said, I train on Agile Scrum. So all these are my certifications and areas of expertise. I have more than 18 years of experience, extensively worked in pre-sales, bidding, transition, operation. In fact, I've been doing consulting on DevOps and CM for quite some time. And I've done end-to-end implementation of DevOps. I've trained more than 10,000 professionals in last 10 years. So if we consider my experience as a trainer, it's been last 10 years. I've been working as a trainer and I've trained more than 10,000 professionals in all these different areas. So team, our agenda for today. Today, we will first try to see what is DevOps. There are a lot of apprehensions about DevOps. So most of you are from DevOps background and few of you are new to DevOps. So I would just take you through what is DevOps, what DevOps goals are, pillars of DevOps, why DevOps is needed, what are the benefits of DevOps. And in fact, after that, we will look at the CI/CD pipeline. So Aditya will take you through entire CI/CD pipeline after we are done with the first part. And after I take your questions on the first part, then we will demonstrate the CI/CD pipeline. So DevOps evolution. I mean, when we talk about DevOps, so DevOps journey started way back in 2009. And prior to that, Patrick DeBoy, who takes the credit of launching DevOps, was assessing the entire IT value chain. Now, when we talk about the value chain, so he was assessing the development, the testing, and the operations aspects of the entire value chain, because there were a lot of errors, a lot of issues that they were facing, a lot of silos, teams were working in silos, and finally the products that were launched, they were not supported well enough to enhance the customer experience, or there were a lot of issues and a lot of outages in the production areas. So Patrick DeBoy started assessing this in 2007. In 2008, he attended one of the Agile conferences. Now, this Agile conference was driven by Andrew Clay Schaffer. Now, Andrew Clay Schaffer was the person who was keen on introducing Agile in most of the organizations. So he was conducting those conferences. But in this conference in 2008, there were only a handful of people. One was Patrick DeBoy and another few friends of Andrew Clay Schaffer were present. So then these guys came together and they started looking at the value chain. They started saying that there are so many issues, so many problems with DevOps, with the development and the operations with the entire IT value chain. And still people are not coming ahead and they are not raising any voice or they are not ready to do anything. So then they put their brains together and finally they launched DevOps in 2009 in Belgium. So that was the first conference on DevOps that was conducted. At that time, they used to call it as Development and Operations Days, which was later renamed as DevOps Days. And then people started calling it as DevOps. So that's how the name evolved, DevOps, and it started in 2009. Now from 2009 onwards, there were a lot of new tools that got introduced for DevOps. The major addition was in 2013 when the Phoenix project book written by Jenkins was introduced. In this book, Jenkins specifically talks about 3 ways of implementing DevOps. So there is no single right way to implement the DevOps. You can implement it in 3 different ways, and all 3 ways are explained quite well in this particular book in very simple language. And then the journey is still going on for the DevOps. So this is how DevOps evolved over the period of time. Now, most of you would raise a question that what is DevOps? So when we talk about what is DevOps, so guys here to explain this, I would share an example that in one of the very old customer accounts, it was mainly the bank where we were working, and we had a development team. Development team used to write their codes, committed to the source repository, and then it used to go for compilation. That means the build part, then the testing, and then it used to get deployed in the pre-production staging. And then it used to go for the production deployment. And then after testing in the production, it was released in the production. So this was the overall pipeline that we used to follow. Now in this pipeline itself, there were so many issues. So in fact, first issue was when our developers were committing their code to the source, they were taking a lot of time, because when one developer used to commit the code, the others used to wait for that developer to finish, and then they would again commit their code to that particular source file, and they will first do the compatibility check. And let's say all the developers have finished their code, and if now one of them comes up with some enhancement and wants to make those enhancements, makes the enhancement, then others would end up doing this testing again. So there were a lot of complexities in the development environment itself. And then there were builds. First, we used to finish the entire application. Then we used to go for the builds. Then we started with nightly builds, where at the end of the day, all the codes will be extracted, compiled, and then we will see whether are there any errors, or when we do the testing, are there any defects, and used to pass on that information to the development team. And then they would again do the upgrades, or they will make the changes, and then again it will go for the build and the testing part. And then finally we used to go for the deployments in the production. Now when we are going for the deployments in the production, so we had another pain area. Now we used to build the servers manually. Long back, we used to build the servers manually. Let's say we are building a VM, we used to write everything manually. We used to take around 30 to 35 minutes for building one VM. And then once, let's say if we have to deploy that particular application or that software onto 100 odd VMs, then you will have to create them, and you will end up spending so much of time. That was another pain area. Then we used to do the testing in staging, in a pre-production environment. And when we used to do the testing in the production environment, we used to get different results. Most of our applications or softwares were passed in the pre-production environment, but they used to fail in the production environment. So that was another challenge. In fact, we used to take 4 months to make the releases or do the releases, because it was too tedious and too complex, and there was a lot of wait period. Sometimes we used to come to the testing stage, and testing or test resources were not available. So there were a lot of issues. And in fact, when we are releasing to the production, there were outages in the production. In fact, for that particular customer, when we baseline the outages, we had 30 plus business outages in that particular year. Now, CIO comes to us. CIO says that I want to reduce the business outages from 30 to maybe 2 or 5. Let's keep it below 5, and then we will target to keep it below 2. And he says that as of now, we are releasing in 4 months. Now I want to release in every month, and then we will try to release in every 10 days, or we'll try to release it in every 15 days. That was the ask from the CIO of that organization. Now, how to achieve this? So everybody said, okay, we will try. Everyone started coming up with new ideas. And in fact, no one knew that we can go for the DevOps. So how did we start? So we said, okay, let's start from the operations. Let's start from place where it hurts the most. So we started looking at the outages. And then we said that if there are those outages, let's try to reduce the outages. Why there are so many outages? So first we created a connect between the development and the operations team, because even though there were outages, we were taking a lot of time to fix those outages. So development team, when they used to mark those particular codes for deployment in production, or marking those codes for the changes, then we made a mandate requirement, and that requirement was that training should be given to the operations team and the even the service desk guys. They should be aware of those particular changes. So that was a mandate that was put as a control. And once we put in that as a control, then all the operations guys were aware of what kind of changes are coming to the operation, and they were ready. So we started reducing our time to fix those particular incidents. Now, to avoid those incidents, there was a feedback that was needed to go back to the development team. Now, how to give that particular feedback to the development team? So there we created a connect. We created weekly calls or weekly connect with the development and the operations. So operations, as a part of operations team, we used to do weekly calls on Friday for problem management, where we used to assess what are those incidents, why we are getting so many incidents, what are those categories, subcategories, and configuration items that are being used to categorize those particular incidents. So in those calls, we started inviting the development spokes, and we started giving them heads up that what kind of issues we are facing for applications that they are handling. And we started asking them to review our KDB in order to enhance the workarounds, and also to take it as a feedback so that they can do some improvisation at their end in order to reduce the outages. Now, this was our first step. And then we went for the next step as a reduction of timeline that we were taking. So then we started implementing tools. So different tools for creating those particular infrastructure as a code. I mean, there are different tools where we use this concept as infrastructure as a code, wherein your entire infrastructure provisioning will be through the tool. Your environment development will be done through the tool. We started using a tool like Chef, Puppet, and Ansible, where that infrastructure as a code was possible. You have to just run the command to set up that particular infrastructure, so that all the environments are similar, so that whatever result we get in the pre-production environment is similar to the production environment. So that's how we started reducing the noise. Now, in fact, we went ahead with the further automation, like even the tools like Chef or Puppet, they help us in creating those VMs, doing the deployments quite faster. Earlier, we were taking 30-35 minutes to manually build a server. Now it came down to 3 minutes. So that was the speed. Now, this was only for the deployments. For testing also, we started using test scripts earlier, and then we used Selenium. For continuous integration, we started using Jenkins, where Jenkins used to extract the codes and integrate them. And then for build part, we started using Maven as a tool. And then even in the deployment, even in the code repository or in the development environment, where developers were committing their code to the main source file, we started using a GitHub as a tool. Now, when we say GitHub as a tool, it gives the team a kind of feature or kind of functionality that they can commit the code at the same time. So that reduced a lot of time for us, a lot of dependency for us. So when I left that organization in that year, the benefits of implementing the DevOps was that we had only 2 business outages in that particular year, and we reduced our timeline for release. In fact, earlier it was 4 months, and now we came down to around 20 days. After every 20 days, we were able to do a release. So these are some benefits of implementing DevOps, wherein it gives you more speed, more reliability. That means you have less outages in the operations. Now, why this was a need? If you look at this particular scenario, both the teams were working in silos. Now, when I say both the teams are working in silos, development, they always want to enhance their applications because they want to please the customer. They want to have that customer delight. When we talk about the operations team wants to have stability, because every change in the operations is going to bring in that particular instability, and then they will lose their targets, or they will miss their own incident SLAs, and then they might have to pay the penalty. So here, both the teams were driving different goals. So when they are driving different goals, they are not collaborating. They are just cooperating with each other. And when they start cooperating with each other, they are focusing only on their area, not on what customer needs. So then that watermelon effect comes in the picture. So in order to avoid that watermelon effect, we wanted to break this wall of confusion. And this wall of confusion was taken away or was eliminated with the help of DevOps. Now, DevOps cannot work alone. To implement DevOps effectively, we need to have agile implementation. So because DevOps is one way of being agile. So for that particular bank, we implemented agile first. So first we migrated to agile, and then we went into DevOps. So this is DevOps. Now, when you define DevOps, you can say, oh, it's a collaboration between the development and the operations team using different technology or automations in order to increase the speed and bring in more reliability. So there are different definitions of DevOps. as DevOps is, if you look at the BOK, body of knowledge for DevOps, it's not a single BOK for DevOps. It's a collective BOK for DevOps. So there are multiple books that have been written like DevOps Enterprise, Phoenix Project. So there are multiple books that are written for DevOps. There are multiple webinars that are conducted. So it's a collective BOK, body of knowledge for DevOps. So all these definitions hold true. The most commonly used definition, I'm going to show you that. But before that, as I'm talking about the DevOps, so if we define DevOps based on what case study I gave you, we can say it is collaboration between the development and the operations. So it is more of a thought process that helps you eliminate the silos and bring in more collaboration. So it is a change in the mindset and building a blame-free culture. So it's a theory that is supported by processes and tools. So again, what is DevOps? So this is one of the commonly used definition. So you can remember this diagram where we are saying it is integration, convergence, and collaboration between the development and the operations. So here, a culture and a professionalship that emphasizes on convergence, collaboration, and integration between software development and operations professional, while automating the processes of software delivery and infrastructure changes. So this is DevOps. Now, in fact, when we talk about a scenario when what was DevOps or how teams used to work before DevOps. So in fact, pre-DevOps teams used to be where your development team is doing design and build part and testing also, and operations team used to participate in setting up the releases, doing the deployments. So they were again working in silos. And in fact, when there were incidents in the operations, development team is least bothered because they used to say our job is done. Now, in fact, after implementing DevOps, we ensure that we have roles like SRE, Site Reliability Engineers. Now, this SRE role would play a bridge or create a bridge between the development and the operations, where SRE can also help in understanding or can also help in connecting the development team with the operations team. So whenever there are any incidents in the operations, who from the development team can fix those particular incidents permanently or early fixes of those incidents. Now, all this is possible because of such roles in the development team. So that's how we are creating that collaborative culture between the dev and ops team. So when we call it as a dev and ops team or DevOps team, now this team, a single team would be doing the design part, build, test, set up the release, deploy, feedback. All this would be done by single team. Now, what DevOps is not. Now, whatever we discussed so far, we were just talking about what DevOps is. Now, in fact, if we get a chance to explain what DevOps is not, so there are many misconceptions in the market. Now, most of them say it's not, most of them think that it's a tool, we have implemented a tool or we have implemented certain DevOps tool, so DevOps is done. No. So it's not a new tool or a framework that will replace Agile or ITIL. In fact, DevOps is a collective practices that help in using the Agile and ITIL in order to collaborate that development and the operations together. Then many people used to think, oh, it's a product or a service to purchase, but it is not a product. I mean, you cannot go in the market and say, hey, I want to buy DevOps. No. In fact, now this is common misconception where people say, oh, we have a DevOps team. Now, many organizations have a DevOps team. So they say it's an organizational unit. But can you just look at this and can you just identify when people say, oh, we have a DevOps team, what this DevOps team means? When we say DevOps team, so you are saying that that team also has a knowledge of development. So that team is also doing the development and that team is also managing the operations. In fact, in any organization, you will not be able to find such teams, right? You have two teams taking care of development and the operations. So when we create this DevOps team, what exactly are we talking about? So this DevOps as a unit, as an organizational unit that is created is a collection of people or collection of resources who are very good with the skill set on managing the DevOps tool set. So that means they are able to manage the DevOps tool. It could be Jenkins, it could be Maven, Ansible, it could be GitHub, Bitbucket, Chef, Puppet. It could be your monitoring tools like Nagios. It could be your container tools like Docker, Kubernetes. It could be your Kibana. Could be many other tools. In fact, there is a periodic table that is available for these tools. There are around 120 tools in that particular periodic table, which can be used for different stages in the DevOps. Now here we are talking about DevOps not being organizational unit. Yeah. Now there are many organizations that think that it is about implementing the tools. We have implemented tools. That means we have done DevOps. No, you cannot say that you have a very good CI/CD pipeline where you have implemented the entire pipeline. Like I told you, we implemented GitHub for the source repository. Then we implemented Jenkins, which used to extract the codes from GitHub and do the integration, because Jenkins provides the integration server. And then from there, Maven used to do the build part, the compilation part, because build server comes from Maven, and then Selenium scripts were used for testing. And then we were using Chef for infrastructure as a code and for the deployment in the production. And then we were using for monitoring purposes, we were using Nagios earlier, then we moved on to Kibana. So this is entire tool chain. Now, when I'm saying this is a tool chain, that means my CI/CD pipeline is already implemented using a tool chain. But can I say I have done the DevOps? No. In fact, DevOps is a mindset that needs to be developed. In DevOps, we talk about failure as normal, as one of the pillars of DevOps. So when we say failure as normal, what does it mean? What does that mean? In fact, in DevOps, we say fail fast. That means if people fail, they would learn from their mistakes. Every failure is treated as a learning point. So they would learn and they should not repeat the same failure again in the same way. So that is where it's not only about tools, it is about mindset as well. It is about collaborative culture as well. So it's more of a cultural shift, not only tools. Then we say it's not one size that fits all. Now, DevOps is not going to fix all the problems, but it is going to fix most of the problems for the organization. So where we are saying we want to release faster, DevOps can help. We want to maintain the reliability of the operations where development is causing instability in the operation, and we want to bring in that reliability, DevOps can help. So DevOps will help in any scenario where we are doing the development and we are performing the operations to support that particular development. So there DevOps would help. So here we are talking about it's not one size that fits all. And it's not about simply combining the development and the operations team. It's about, as I discussed, it's about their culture of collaboration. So it's about their behavior. It's about their mindset. So DevOps is more than all these. In fact, these are some of the misconceptions for DevOps. Now, what are those DevOps goals? When I talk about DevOps goals, we progress in smaller or more frequent releases because we have to release faster. So we always progress in the small batch sizes. So small batch sizes would give us more speed. So that is smaller and more frequent releases so that we can release faster, reduce effort and risk as well in DevOps. So reduce the effort where we are promoting a lot of automation. We are trying to reduce the human intervention. So there is a lot of effort that gets reduced. And similarly, as human intervention is getting reduced, the risk of human errors will also be reduced. And in fact, reduce cost of production iterations and delays. So we are going to avoid failures in the early life cycle itself. So you will not have to rework in the in those product iterations when you get to the final stage, or where you are taking the feedback. So as we take the feedback in every sprint, so we take early feedback, and that is helping us in reducing the cost of product iterations or delays later. In fact, we are able to release faster with the help of agile concepts, obviously. Then it is a culture of communication and collaboration between the development and operations team, and a consistency and speed through automation. So it gives us more speed, it gives us more reliability. Yeah. In fact, when we talk about the DevOps goals, I can ask you to remember 4 goals of DevOps. One is speed, another is quality. Then we talk about reliability and the culture. So when we talk about speed, you can think of reducing the cycle time of releases, releasing faster. You can talk about reducing the cycle time for the changes, reducing the deployment cycle times. All that is going to give you more speed. In fact, when we talk about quality, we are talking about reduction of errors. And when we talk about reliability where we calculate mean time between failures. So that is where we are talking about reduction in the outages, which is going to enhance our stability, reliability. We also calculate availability there. And in fact, we go ahead in culture. In culture, we are going to calculate the net promoter score. In culture, we are going to talk about the user satisfaction. In culture, we talk about reducing the attrition for the organization, increasing the employee satisfaction. So all these areas would be included in the culture. So these could be your DevOps goals. Now, in DevOps, we usually talk about these 5 values. DevOps talks about 5 values. They are culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing. You can remember it as CALMS, CALMS. So culture of collaboration between the development and the operations. In fact, we talk about automation. Automation is our key focus. We try to automate almost all the activities because we have to release faster and we have to reduce the risk of failure. So there we try to do the automation through different tools, connecting them through different APIs. In fact, just to tell you, Amazon says, and I have a slide on that as well. Amazon claims that if their developers have committed the code to the source repository, then it takes around 11.6 seconds to put it in the production. So they have done that kind of automation. Their tool chain is that strong. Now, in fact, 11.6 seconds were quite a few years back, but now they are claiming around 6 seconds to move from that code repository to the production. So that's a claim from Amazon. This is only possible because of the automation, because of the tool set. Now, in fact, lean is key aspect in DevOps because in DevOps, when we are talking about our value streams, so there can be multiple value streams in DevOps. You can consider microservices to be part of those value streams. So when we talk about any value stream, for the value stream, what are those value adding activities? What are the non-value adding activities? So in fact, we do that VSM, value stream mapping here. In Lean, we have 5 principles that we apply in DevOps. Those 5 principles, the first principle says you define a value where you are going to understand what is value for the customer. So you understand or you define that value for the customer. Then you are going to do the VSM activity, VSM value stream mapping, where you are identifying which are the value adding activities, which are non-value adding activities, and you are going to reduce or try to minimize the non-value adding activities as much as possible. And that is where lean comes in the picture. Reduction of wastage, maximizing the value. And in fact, then we get to the measurements. Now, as I told you about those 4 DevOps goals and the metrics that you can define in those 4 DevOps goals, which is speed, then quality, reliability, and culture. So you can define those measurements into those areas. You can define the measurements to assess the maturity of DevOps in your organization. So measurement is also one of the value. Then comes sharing. Sharing is sharing the knowledge. Now for sharing the knowledge between different teams, you can conduct workshops, you can conduct these sessions internally, you can host trainings onto the LMS. So there are multiple ways of sharing that information. In fact, you can also do the internal DevOps days where you can conduct those conferences within the organization in your open house sessions where you can invite the experts and you can ask them to deliver a session where how did they start their journey on DevOps and what were the challenges, how did they manage it. And in the end, you can give them some rewards as well. So this is how you are creating that culture of sharing. So sharing is an important value of DevOps. How do we share? How do we get everyone on the same page? So that's how the DevOps values would work. So these are those 5 DevOps values, which is remembered as CALMS. So you want to implement DevOps, you have to have these 5 values in place. In fact, Based on those 5 values, we also have these pillars of effective DevOps: collaboration. So where we were talking about the culture of collaboration. So targeting a specific outcome through supporting interactions and inputs of multiple people, cross-functional teams. So there you should have that collaboration. Then we are saying affinity. Affinity talks about shared organizational goals, empathy, and learning between different groups of people. Then tools. DevOps cannot survive without the tools. You cannot implement, or let's say you can do the DevOps without the tools, but you cannot have that kind of speed where you're talking about, I want to release faster. So you will not have that possibility without the tools. So you need better tool set. You need to have that funding for the tools. You need to have the investments to be done in those kind of tools so that you can have that better speed, better time to market. So tools is one of the effective pillars of DevOps. In fact, then we are talking about scaling. Now, scaling could be one of the biggest issues. So for scaling, nowadays we are doing DevOps on, or we have migrated DevOps on the cloud. So how DevOps can be applied in different organizations as they grow, mature, or even shrink. So for that purpose, what kind of models are we using for scaling the DevOps? It is covered in this particular pillar. Now we are talking about what are the benefits of DevOps. So why DevOps? In fact, DevOps would give more speed. We said we would be releasing faster, even for the bank when we started earlier. So we used to release every 4 months because it was a waterfall method. Then using Agile, we started doing the deployments in every sprint, every 2 weeks, every 10 working days. But we started releasing faster as well. We define what is our MVP that can go in the market, or MMP, minimum marketable product. So first you can launch MVP, and then later maybe in the next sprints you can launch MMP. So that's how you can release faster. So your basic product goes in the market faster. Your ideas go in the market faster. Your cost of delay is reduced. In fact, your holding cost is reduced. So your solutions are more speedier. In fact, we are talking about enhanced performance. So it improves the performance of the team. It improves the productivity of the team. So in fact, productivity I would relate it with improved efficiency of the team. Enhanced performance could be enhanced performance of the softwares, of the hardware, of the tool set that we are using. So in fact, it helps in continuous improvement. So DevOps develops that kind of culture where we have collaborative team, the team works together. So if team is working on certain pipeline, and if there is a pipeline that is broken, team itself stops the entire pipeline, and then all of them will come to that broken piece. They will try to fix it, and then they are going to again start their pipeline. So it's continuous improvement, continuous enhancement. In fact, new improvements, new automations are suggested. Team works in that experimentation way. They keep experimenting new things. And that is the third way of implementing DevOps. So when I was talking about first 3 ways of implementing DevOps, first way talks about implementing DevOps in a way that you are increasing a flow from left to right. Now, when I say left to right, left side, we are looking at development, the testing, and right is operations. So increasing the flow from left to right. How can we increase the flow? By progressing in smaller batch sizes, by reducing the impediments. So there we use theory of constraints, we use automation to increase that flow, increase the speed. That is first way of implementing DevOps. Then we are talking about the second way. Second way is creating shorter feedback loops from right to left. So when we say right to left, that means these are shorter feedback loops that go from operations to the production. So that is second way. Third way is experimentation, and that helps in the continuous improvement. Now we are talking about better customer improvement. So in fact, customer satisfaction, or NPS, has increased because of DevOps, because it gives you more reliability. It reduces the pain for the customer, reduce failures and errors, and higher ROI, higher return on investment if you are implementing DevOps. Now, what is driving DevOps? So there are multiple organizations who have taken the DevOps. In fact, it is used in the Netflix, it is used in Amazon, it is used in retail stores, it is used everywhere. So these are some numbers from Amazon. Amazon says this is old number. As I said earlier, they take 11.6 seconds, which is the mean time between two deployments on the weekdays. And in fact, we are talking about maximum number of deployments in single hour. That is 60 minutes was 1079. In fact, 10,000 was the mean number of hosts simultaneously receiving a deployment. That was mean. Maximum number of hosts that have received deployment simultaneously is 30,000. And these are some of the pioneers who are doing DevOps. So you have web pioneers where we are talking about Amazon, Netflix, Etsy, Facebook. In financials, you have Bank of America, Barclays, Commonwealth Bank of Australia, ING Bank. In entertainment, we are talking about Disney, Sony. We are talking about even in manufacturing, we are talking about Apple, Lego. We are talking about Unilever, retailers, Target, and Nordstorm. So there are many other organizations that are there who are doing the DevOps. So DevOps is not new. In fact, DevOps started in 2009. Most of the organizations have adopted DevOps and they are reaping the benefits of moving to DevOps. As I told you, DevOps is not a silver bullet, but yeah, DevOps will eliminate most of the pain areas for you. DevOps gives you those kind of tool set that can help you increase the speed, that can give you more reliability. You are able to fix the issues early in the life cycle. And as you are progressing in smaller batch sizes, you will be able to deliver as per the customer requirements. Now, guys, this was about DevOps that I had to share with you guys. Now, before I go ahead and open the session for question answers, I would like to share something about Novelvista. Guys, I'm working as a trainer for Novelvista right now. And as I said, I have association with Novelvista for past 10 years. And I've been working with Novelvista. In fact, we started Novelvista together. And here I've trained more than 10,000 professionals in the market. So as a part of Novelvista, we deliver training on each and every domain that you can look at. We deliver training on DevOps, we deliver training on ITL, we deliver training on CM, we deliver training on Agile, Scrum, everything. So it is 10 plus years of global training experience, founded by industry experienced professionals, worked at leadership levels across Wipro, Infosys, and JP Morgan, and talent development solutions from freshers to management level. So in fact, the sales, digital marketing, and product management, global presence with 21 industries and 500 plus corporate trainers and 100 plus corporate globally. And we have trained 1 lakh plus participants, and CSAT on the scale of 5 is around 4.8 plus, and NPS is 85. So this is about us as a part of Novelvista. If we talk about our association, so we are associated with almost all the leading training providers. Accreditation bodies or examination bodies, or you can look at DevOps Institute. You can talk about Exin, PeopleCert, GSDC. We are associated with Excelos. So all these organizations we are associated with. We conduct trainings for them. We conduct exams through them. And when we talk about our clients, so we've been delivering trainings for all these leading organizations. We've been delivering it for Accenture, TCS. These are the provider organizations. We've been delivering it for Fiserv, SunGard, FIS, Maersk. We've been delivering the trainings for PwC, Infosys, HCL, Tieto. So you name it, we do it. So team, now I open the session for question answers. Yes, any questions? Team, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, regarding SRE. Where does SRE fits? Does it fit in operations? Does it fit in development?
Mhm. So
So,
SRE, okay. Did you complete your question or?
yeah, means I was just, curious to know about SRE, when you look at the industry standpoint,
Uh-huh.
how do you fit SRE and how their role is, kind of different from DevOps, and, their role is different from a software, like, DevOps and SRE are very tightly integrated, but they have very different job roles.
Yeah. So when we talk about the DevOps and SRE, see, SRE is a kind of bridge between the development and the operations. Mainly, we talk about reliability to the operations. So you would say how this SRE role should be identified or how that SRE role can help in the operations. SRE helps in establishing the SLOs. I'm directly jumping to that particular point. This is just one part of the SRE role. This is not complete SRE role. We say SRE is a bridge between the development and the operations. So SRE is going to help you create those SLOs, service level objectives, identify your error budgets, and then in case you breach your or you exceed your error budgets or you breach your SLOs, then implementing the error budget policy. Like, let's say, I'll give you a simple example. Like, let's say we are talking about 99.5% of SLO, service level objective, on availability. That means our services should be available for 99.5% of the time, of 5% of the time. And then the error budget is 0.5%. So where we are talking about that 0.5% would be contributing to some number of hours. Let's assume if we are saying that 99.5% is total available time, then remaining 0.5%, I'm assuming it to be 3 hours, 3 hours in a month. So if it is 3 hours to 4 hours in a month, that means now SRE would keep monitoring that how many outages have happened in the operations, due to which we have missed that availability or due to which there is availability breach. So SRE would ensure that whenever those changes, those releases are implemented in the production, we stick to our error budget. That means that 3 hours or 4 hours, we don't exceed that error budget. In case we have exceeded the error budget, then error budget policy should be implemented. Now, on one side, you can say error budget policy can be your change freeze period to reduce the impact to the business, so that we don't miss out on SLA. Let's say our SLA on availability was 99%. Here we have defined the SLO as 99.5%, thinking from the user's perspective. And then that error budget will be remaining 0.5%, which contributes to around 3 to 4 hours. And SRE would ensure that we stay within that particular error budget. Now, to do this, you have to ensure that your organization empowers the role of SRE. In most of the organizations, SREs are hired, SRE role is implemented, but it is not empowered. Yeah. So this is just one part of SRE. Apart from this, SRE is going to monitor your development, your testing. SRE is also going to monitor the service management. In fact, SRE provides on-call when you are implementing those changes. So these are different aspects of the SRE role. Yep.
Thank you. So just a follow-up question. So what technical skills you think are required for an SRE roles and how they're different from DevOps?
Really a good question. Okay. In fact, I tell you nowadays, when we look at Naukri.com or Monster or all these job sites, there are a lot of skills that are asked for the SRE role. So mainly they look at the tools expertise with the SRE. So they want those tools. I mean, SRE should be clear about those tools which are being used in the development, in the integration, in the build, in the testing, in the staging. So which are those tools that are used, how to integrate them, that integration knowledge that is being asked from the SRE. And SRE should have a clear understanding of CI/CD pipeline. Yeah, how it works. And even the service management, because SRE has to provide on-call while supporting those changes, while implementing those changes. And SRE should be clear with the incident management, problem management, all these areas. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Vikas, Aditya here.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of questions coming up in the chat. We'll try to answer them one by one. So the first question comes from Farzad. He asks, for beginners of DevOps, which certification should I start with?
Okay. If you are a beginner for DevOps, then I would say go for the DevOps Foundation. That is the certification that you should do because it clears your concepts on DevOps and it will also help you understand what CI/CD pipeline is. So DevOps Foundation is something that you should look for.
All right. I hope that answers your question, Farzad. Let's just see. He's asking DevOps with Azure.
Okay. Yeah. So DevOps with Azure means you are talking about DevOps in cloud. So your CI/CD pipeline would remain same instead of doing it through your physical systems or through your own data center. Now you're doing it in the cloud. So DevOps with Azure can also work. In fact, DevOps in AWS is also good. Yeah.
I think there's this last follow-up question from him. He asks, what's the code for DevOps Foundation? What's the code for DevOps Foundation?
Okay, I think he is talking from the certification perspective for applying for that code or was it?
Can you be a little more clear, Farzad, as to what do you mean by that? Okay. I think he was asking for the exam code.
Yeah. So exam code, I would, maybe we can share it later with Farzad. I don't have it with me right now. We can share it with you. Yeah.
Yeah, Farzad, we'll definitely get back to you on this.
Yeah.
The next question comes from.
Okay, somebody. Yeah.
It comes from Lalit. He asks, what's a good way to start with DevOps in a 40+ IT organization?
Okay. So good way to start DevOps in the organization where they have only 40 people, is it?
That's, I think, what it means. 40+ IT organization. I think he means 40 employees. If you want to clear it, Lalit, you can just put it in. I think that's what he meant.
Okay. So if it's a small organization, maybe a small startup, so it would be really easy for them to start the DevOps because then they would have a small development team. So for that small development team, they can pick up their 40 IT employees in a 150 people organization. Okay. So they are saying that they want to implement that particular DevOps only using these 40 IT employees. So if you are talking about how to implement it, first you will have to train these guys on DevOps. Then you can pick up the CI/CD pipeline. You see how that pipeline is right now, and then how you're going to enhance it using the tool set. So when you're going for the tool set now, as you're a small organization, I would say you can go with the open source tools. You have some free tools, try freemium tools where the base version is free, and then you have advanced versions. So you can get that hands-on onto those tools, and you will be able to see the results coming out of those tools, and then you can implement in some tools which can give you. Then you can invest in those tools which can give you better results. Yeah. So that should be.
Thank you, Vikas. I do have a follow-up question. So I looked at the periodic table, which you mentioned. Very, very helpful. Thank you for mentioning that. One of the questions we have is from the IT team, which we're talking about for 40+ people, should we have dedicated people towards the ops part of DevOps, or it can be anybody who can take that role?
No, so you will have to keep a team that is good at service management when you talk about the ops part. See, okay, now what I'm understanding with the ops is regular operations where you can create those microservices, or maybe the entire pipeline being managed by the people of development. You will have the developers, you will have the testers, and you will have the operational guys who are going to support the operations. So that entire team, once you have implemented that CI/CD pipeline, that entire team becomes your operational team. So that same team can work on multiple pipelines as well, or you can use the single pipeline for multiple applications as well. It talks, I mean, it depends on what kind of confidentiality you want to maintain for different customers. So that's how you can decide. But you can leverage on same pipeline. That is first take.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
All right, Vikas, we have another question from Ajay. He asks, nowadays Azure DevOps is keeping the market share fast rather than the AWS DevOps. Please share your thoughts. Does Azure DevOps has more features and robust process?
See, when you compare Azure with AWS, both are equal. Now, when we talk about the market feature or market share, Microsoft, I mean, Azure comes from Microsoft. So they are able to keep that market share because they are, I mean, when I look at the pricing mechanism, when I look at the other aspects, so Azure Azure and AWS, you cannot say. Yep.
Yeah, my experience with AWS and with DevOps, Azure has integrated a lot of things into one tooling or one platform or whatever you want to call it. What happens with using Azure as a beginner or as a person starting on their DevOps journey, you don't really get to learn the actual features of how to implement CI/CD outside of Azure.
Yeah.
That is one warning I want to throw out for people who are starting out on this journey.
Yeah. In fact, just to add to this, I would say even Netflix, when they started their migration to cloud first. And once they moved into AWS, Amazon is the cloud that they were using. And then they started using their CDNs, their different appliances of Amazon, proprietary tools of Amazon, due to which they
From working operations only, what will be the best way to fully transit to DevOps?
can you repeat that question? What was the question?
Yeah, the question was coming from working in operations only, what will be the best way to fully transit to DevOps?
Okay, fully transit to DevOps. There are multiple ways to fully transit to DevOps. Now, as you're saying, you are working in the operations. So, do you have the development in place? I mean, is it in scope? If you have the entire development and the operations as a part of your organization only, then migration to DevOps will be again easy. There are multiple ways, like I gave you example of the bank where we started with integration of the change with the operations and how we started reducing the noise in the operations, and then how that feedback went to the development team. That entire second way. Third way is experimentation. So there are multiple ways that can be used for that particular implementation or migration to DevOps.
Yeah, I'd like to add my 2 bits.
Yeah.
When you try to match the deployment environment with the production environment, that would be the first step I would think. When the testing environment is exactly similar to what you would do in production, that would be the first step to move towards DevOps for an operations person.
Okay, for an operations person, yes, you're right. And in fact, for an operations person to move to DevOps, the best part is where we are talking about participating in the releases and the deployments where we were using Chef as a tool. So getting that hands-on onto those technical tools, contributing your knowledge or are contributing the feedback to the development team, working on those kind of areas in that value stream. So
yeah, you should look at the 12-factor code development or principles, and one of them is. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Thank you.
The next question comes from Partha himself, and I did answer it in the chat as well, but this is for the entire audience. If anybody has this question, he asked, and I want you to add, because I want you to add your two pieces of information, whatever else you can add to this. Do we provide a certification for Exin DevOps Professional?
We are providing a certification for Exin DevOps Master. So DevOps Master is something that we provide in Novelvista.
Okay, right. So Bindu asks, I'm sorry, how the error budget is calculated based on SLI or SLO. Error budget is on percentage or on hours.
Okay. Error budget is usually our SLO, we calculate it in percentage, but it is not exactly, I mean, it can be in other ways a particular target as well, because when you define the SLOs are defined in 5 different areas. I mean, that is one of the best practice. You define it for the volumes, you define it for the availability, you define it for the latency, you define it for the errors or the tickets. Yeah. Tickets. So these are 5 areas where you define the SLOs. Now, when you define the SLOs in percentage, the remaining part, I mean 100 minus that SLO is your error budget. Now, to calculate that error budget, we usually put in the hours or the tickets or the transactions, as I told you, in those 5 areas. So when you define those error budgets, to calculate that error budget in that area, like let's say you're talking about an error budget where you're saying that out of 1,000 web requests, 250 can go wrong. So in that case, the 250 is your error budget. So for those 250 requests, your web request is your SLI. To measure that web request as a SLI, you will have total number of web requests as one of the SLI, one of the metrics. Another is successful web request or the failed web request, and you take the ratio. So that ratio will give you that SLI. Yeah. So this is relationship between SLI, error budget, and the SLO.
Okay, Shapey asks, hi, as a DevOps engineer, do I need to select Node.js or Python for scripting? Which is best to learn? Why DNK has greater importance in DevOps? And to wrap it up, she asks, as I'm very new to DevOps, can I say learning DevOps is nothing but getting familiar with DevOps tools?
No. See, learning DevOps has 2 areas. One is tools, where you're talking about these different tools. And another is the DevOps as a concept, the DevOps as a practice to be implemented in your organization. So when we talk about 2 areas, in fact, when you go with the certifications also, you will find that there are 2 types of certification. One is DevOps engineer, which covers all the tools, hands-on onto those tools. And when we talk about the another aspect, that is DevOps concepts, where you are talking about the CI/CD pipeline, what CI/CD pipeline is, and what are the best practices in these processes that you have, like continuous development, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous delivery or deployment, and continuous monitoring. So how you set up these processes, what are the best practices in these processes apart from tool, that is also covered. So it's not only about the tools. Yeah.
Right. The last question is from Mohammed. He asks, what tools should I learn as a DevOps developer that are mandatory to be a DevOps developer?
Okay. See, actually, there are multiple tools. You can look at, I mean, instead of calling any tool name, I would say you should look at your source file tools, I mean, source repository tools. So it can be GitHub, Bitbucket, SVN, there are multiple tools. And then you can look at the continuous integration tools, where Jenkins is the most common one, the build tools. So these are some tools that you should be familiar with as a developer. Yeah.
Right, I think that's about it. Guys, if anybody else has a question, you can put it in the chat box or ask it yourself to Vikas. We'll be wrapping up with the question and answer session soon. So
Because this is Rajiv, just last question, in terms of SRE versus DevOps, that's what, I'm trying to do, like, so when you talk about the technicality, like I'm trying to go in a technical background, which one is more technical? And as an architect, like, is SRE a good field to be in?
SRE, see, when you talk about which is more technical, obviously DevOps master, or when you define a DevOps engineer as a role, which is actually a tools architect. I mean, engineers that work in the DevOps or DevOps engineering, when we call it as, how do we implement all the tools in the CI/CD pipeline? How do you integrate those tools? So that part is covered in the DevOps engineering aspects. So it is more technical, whereas SRE will not be doing any implementation of such tools, but SRE should be aware of such tools, because SRE would try to come up with the best practices, suggest those best practices around automating these different processes in DevOps, even improving the operations part or the service management part. Yeah.
And SRE also, does kind of a bug fixes, right? Like for the production things, which does not go to development, right? So that's why it needs to have some knowledge on the software cycle, right?
Yes, that is also needed. You're right.
So it's a complete holistic role with security, tools, development, and all the things comes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So in fact, a good SRE should also have a knowledge on DevSecOps aspect. I mean, security as a concept.
Right. Yeah, that's an aspect, I'm just trying to, think from my own role, depending on, like how to evolve, means I have like software and, administration and architect knowledge. So that's why, I was asking around to be more clear around this role. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So team, in case there are no further questions, Aditya will take you through CI/CD pipeline, where he'll show you some tools and how they work. Yeah. So thanks, team. I'll hand it over to Aditya.
Hello everyone. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, Aditya,
Yes.
it is visible.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
Vikas, thank you very much for that knowledgeable session. It will really help us to understand the DevOps concept. So as Vikas told us, DevOps is not just CI/CD tools. It is a thought process completely. But of course, CI/CD plays a very important role. And we are going to cover some of the tools which are very much important, or which are used mostly in most of the automation. So those are like GitHub, Jenkins, Maven, and we are going to deploy our application on the EC2, which is from AWS. So as we all of know, GitHub is nothing but an repository where we are going to save our data, our code. So I have created one simple repository. Here we are having our code. It's basically a simple web application. Now this web application has been using Maven for its build. So Maven is nothing but one more POM project object model, which help us to reduce our dependency on different types of jar. So it is a build tool, I will say. Then of course Jenkins will be used for all the automation, and EC2 is where we are going to deploy our application. So let's start. First, I would like to show you how the Jenkins looks like. So this is my Jenkins. I have created my Jenkins on AWS server. So this is my Jenkins installation. You can see the IP address. So when we are going to sign in into the Jenkins. Yeah, so in Jenkins, I have created one job. Okay, so if you will go to the dashboard, you will see this is one job which I have created. I will just go and show the configuration details of it so that you will understand why Jenkins plays such an important role. So Jenkins, you can see it is a central part. So all your code will be pulled up by the Jenkins from the GitHub, and then Jenkins is going to talk to your deployment environment as well. So Jenkins plays a very important role. So one of the thing that I'm going to show you is one job configuration. I'm using this Git as my job config repository. So I have added in my source code management. So if you will see Jenkins, there are different types of sections over here when we are creating a job. One is source code management. The source code management section is somewhere where we are going to pull our code. So right now this repository is public, so the credentials has not been added. Okay. So when I want to create the builds, okay, so this is Git Hub Hook Trigger for it is continuously looking at my webhooks or at my Git. So as soon as there is some change into my repository, I'm going to create a new build. This is my build environment. Build environment has pom.xml. So if you will look, like basically covering complete Maven is not possible over here, but we are going to use Maven as our build tool, and one of the very important file in the Maven is project object model.xml, where we have all the configurations or all the dependencies related for a project. So Maven uses this file to create a jar files or war files. These are the goals and options for Maven. Like first, it will clean the build, install and package. Now we will have this post build actions. In my post build actions, we are going to create a war file and we are going to deploy it on one of our Tomcat server. Let me share my development environment with you. Yes, so I have created one very basic simple development environment. Okay, so this is where my we are going to use GitHub. So this is my repository for the GitHub, and I'm using VS Code to show you this one basic HTML file, or you can say it as a JSP file. So we will just change some code over here. So as soon as I make changes, GitHub shows what all changes have been done into this file. So GitHub is a very good tool where you have command line options as well as you have some plugins using VS Code where you can use the GUI. So I'm going to commit this thing onto the server. I need to give a message like I'm giving AWS. DevOps Bootcamp as my message to check in. Now I have checked in this code. I will just
Yeah, Aditya, just one moment. I saw a hand being raised. Guys, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat and I'll address them at the right moment. Thank you.
Yeah. Since I have created and checked in the code, I will just show it in my GitHub repository. Just trying.
Aditya, I can't see your screen anymore. I can't see your screen being shared.
Okay, now can you see?
Yes.
Yeah, so first what we have done, we have created one file. In that file we have made some changes, okay, and now we want to deploy this file. Basically in Git there are three command. One is add, commit and push. With the commit, whatever changes we have made to our file will be committed to our local repository, and if we want those changes to be pushed to the server or to the repository, we can push those changes. So I have just now pushed those changes and now it has been pushed. So I will just show you how the application have received it. We'll go into this thing in details. I'm just checking out like why I'm not able to. I want to share my complete desktop. 1 second. Yes. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, Aditya.
Okay. Yeah. So I will again cover up the things because I was not able to share my complete desktop. Okay. Let's go to our Jenkins server. First, we will run one cycle completely and then we will try to understand what has been done. Okay, this is my Jenkins server. This is the job which will pick up the source code from my GitHub repository and deploy it to my EC2 server. Okay, now let's go back. This is current deployment. You can see welcome to bootcamp. We'll run this complete cycle once again. What we are going to do, first we are going to make the changes into our GitHub code or into our development environment. We will commit that changes and then we will push it to the server, to the GitHub server, and from the GitHub server Jenkins will automatically pick up those changes and deploy it to my EC2 server. That is the cycle what we are going to do. So I will just show you the screen what we are trying to do. Our code is in GitHub repository, then we have Jenkins, and then we are trying to deploy it on the EC2, and Jenkins is using some of Maven to build or to create a war file from my code. So let's run it once again. So as soon as I make the changes, you can see this file has been modified. Now I want to commit this file. Just giving a message will show all these messages. Now these changes has been, so this is proprietary to GitHub. Whatever changes you make, first you have to commit it. Once you commit those changes, then you can push it to your central, your repository. So now if you will see, one new deployment has been getting created. This is my console output for that particular thing. So as soon as we are going to make any changes, one new things will basically a new build will get created, and these are the logs. So now as you can see, welcome to bootcamp again. So I have just shown you how that complete pipeline is getting covered up. We'll go into the bits and pieces of each and every part. We have one GitHub repository. This is my GitHub repository. Where I have my all the code. There are multiple branches, so I'm using master branch. So whatever file we are changing, this is the index.jsp. This file we were changing. You can see the 2 minutes ago, and the bootcamp again was my message while committing that particular file. As Vikas was telling, understanding the tools is pretty much very important part of automation. So GitHub is one of that tool. You need to understand how you are going to use GitHub in your development environment, how you are going to use GitHub as a repository. One of the very important configuration here, what we have done, we have added a webhook. Okay, so if you will see this webhook, this is nothing but my GitHub or my this thing, Jenkins server. Okay, and in Jenkins server, we have to add a webhook. This 54221.67.188.8080. This is where my Jenkins server is listening. This is what my Jenkins server is, and I have added one webhook here. So as soon as there is any change into my GitHub using this webhook, my Jenkins server is going to get notified. Okay, now if we go into our Jenkins server and if we see the build configuration, here is our repository URL. Only from this repository URL, if we are getting that webhook notification, it's going to get build trigger. What is my branch? My branch is master. So here you can see my code was from master branch. This is my master branch. Now what is triggering a build? So whenever a snapshot dependency is built and this GitHub Hook Trigger is continuously polling my server, getting checked if there is any change. As soon as it gets that information, it tries to create a new build and it tries to deploy it to the server. Now we are going to see, so what we have covered is my development environment, our GitHub as a repository, and my Jenkins server. So let's go and check our application. So this is my Tomcat. So in the Tomcat, there is something called as manager app. Using this manager app, we are trying to deploy our web application. So that configuration will be provided to the Jenkins. So Jenkins has a very pluggable or plugin architecture. Okay. So you have to define your post steps, what you want to do. Okay. So here I wanted to add this particular thing to my Tomcat. If you want tomorrow that code has to be deployed or you want to trigger Ansible thing, then you will have to do the configuration over here. So it will be like the extension or the pipeline you need to build up as per your development environment or as per your requirement. You are going to get integrated different tools over here. So one of the very important thing when you are creating Jenkins server, in manage Jenkins, there is a global tool configurations. Okay, so I'm going to show you where is my Git is installed. I need to provide that path to my Jenkins server so that from the Git it can execute some of the commands. And where is my Maven is installed. Okay, it has to provide that information as well. So if we go and check our Jenkins server, that is what we are going to do. We're going to have the RDP and we'll check, do we have this Maven and this Git installed there or not, so that you will understand how the Jenkins server works under the hooks, or what are these different global tool configurations we are providing. So this is my Jenkins server. We have created Jenkins on Windows machine. So we'll just go and check out. So first we wanted to see C program files. Where is my git.exe? So this is what my git command. So my Jenkins server, which is installed or which is running on this Windows server, is picking up this git information from here. And the second one was Maven. So we have to install Maven as well. So it will pick up that Maven information. So I'll just go and check. Maven. So it is in C OPT Apache Maven. So this is where my Maven application has been there. Okay, so this is how Jenkins come to know. Okay, where is my Maven dependency is there, where is my Git is installed. So if you will see, this is what the global tool configuration is there. So this is about the tools which Jenkins will need when it is doing all this magic, like creating using Git to pull up my repository, because it has to know how it needs to pull up the underlying source code. Also it needs to know how I need to create a build out of it. So all this configuration is provided in the global tool configuration. So you will have all different types of configuration over here. And suppose you want to create suppose now if we want to create a new job, suppose we want to create war deploy Tomcat 8, what type of project we want to do. So we want to create a Maven project. We want to have what will be our repository. So I will again since it's a public repository, we do not. So if we make some mistake over here and if that repository is not available, we'll get some error. What type of branch you need to have? So star dot master build trigger. What type of build trigger you want? Build environment. So as we have seen in Maven, what we build, what are our goal option? So our goal option was clean install package. Now add post build actions. What I need to do in post build action, I want to deploy war or EAR to a container. So what will be my war or EAR file will look like? So context part will come over there. What is the container name? Now here I will have to add my credentials. So these will be provided basically by the deployment team to you. I had Dev. Here I need to put. So now you have basically two jobs, and this is how I have created this particular job. So I have just shown you how I have created one more job. You can basically delete this job, or you can make configuration changes, and you can, if you want to run this job directly, you can run it using build now. You do not have to depend on that commit itself. And when you will do the build now, so either this will be success, fail. Okay, so for whatever reason, if it fails, we'll come to know. So basically this is how, again, I'm not going into the details of the logs and everything, so that there might be some changes that I have added. Because of that thing, this particular job is getting filled. That is what the operations team will have to check, and why it is getting failed, and all those things will come again into the picture as usual stuff. So what I have covered is like basically this thing. We Git, then Jenkins server, and then how to deploy it on Tomcat server. So if we go and check my EC2 instance, there are two things. Okay, one is my Jenkins server is running over here, and then I have created a Tomcat server, and on this Tomcat server I'm installing my war file. So it's a very plain basic type of CI/CD you can have. Now all that thing can be made complex as per the requirement. Yeah, so this is how basically CI/CD is working out. Guys, do you have any questions?
Right, guys, does anybody have any question? Okay,
Where are
so
we giving hosted agents? Yeah, so hosted agents means where are we deploying our war file? You mean to understand?
No. So let me take the for .NET. It will need the .NET framework and it should run in the Windows 8 2018 or 2019. So if we go to the any partial script, it need the partial dependency framework.
Hmm.
So that is the agent which where we have given this agent like where it is getting picking up this agent in Jenkins.
So there must be some plugin available for your development environment as well. So you will have to see what type of build you are creating. So right now we are using Maven as our build tool. So similarly, there will be something available for .NET, which you will have to check, and using that thing, that plugin you can get. So in the Jenkins, there are more than 1,000 plugins. So depending upon some of the plugins that can be configured.
Okay. Thank you.
Aditya, there's a question by Ajay. What are the challenges in big setup?
See, of course, like big setup, you will have to understand how the process is working in individual way. So before automating, you will have to understand the process. So what you want to achieve. So right now, if you want to deploy this particular application to, suppose I have just shown one example where directly deploying this application to our EC2 container. In production system, we may have to have it into the staging environment, some approval will be there. So you will have to have one more level of indirection will be added. So if I want to deploy it to multiple environments, I will have Ansible. Instead of directly using Tomcat, I will have Ansible, and Ansible code will play that role of reducing the complexity. Similarly, if I want to have my code quality to understand, I will have one more plugin which will talk to my Jenkins, and it will see the code quality before making a build. So all those things is a pluggable architecture. The way we are handling the complexity in our code by making it modular, the similar way you are going to consider it as a Jenkins. So you have to reduce all, or you have to make small steps for each and every complexity. And there are so many tools are available to address those types of complexities.
Hello, Aditya. Could I ask a question, please?
Yeah, please, sir.
All right. I think we did talk about a lot of objects here, right? We did say Maven and then Jenkins. Then we talked about Tomcat, GitHub. And then we talk about webhooks, right? And then we said EC2. Where do you start and where do you end? Like, what is the path of where do you start?
Okay, yeah. So before this thing, can I ask one question? What is your current environment? How do you create?
We are using Azure, right? It's not AWS, it's Azure. But most of the other aspects, there is one more wedge hammer in that. It's kind of a Jira. I don't want to bring that one in place, but I just want to start from, like, if we are using Jenkins as the broker, like, lack of better word here, as the broker who is going to handle like all the elements together, and Jenkins is going to anchor the source and the target and trying to connect the dots between Maven and then other Tomcat and other elements. Yes. Where is the source? How do you start this?
Okay, so see, right now it doesn't matter whether it is AWS or Azure, because I have not used any of the functionality of AWS. I have created a simple machine which can be created on Azure, which can be created on AWS, and I have used only IP address. So I have not used any functionality. So how I have started? So first I have created one application, okay, or one simple hello world application. I have integrated with my GitHub. Okay. From GitHub, I will create my WAR file, or basically using my environment, I should be able to extract my WAR file, and physically I should be able to deploy it on my server. So Jenkins will not be into picture, first phase. Now into the second phase, Jenkins will come into picture. So there will be only two things. One is your development machine where you are write the code, you will create WAR file or your packaged file, whatever you want, and you will deploy it on some of the server. Now Jenkins will only help to automate this complete process. What you are going to do, you are using putty, you are deploying that WAR file to one of your containers, right? So Jenkins, what it is doing, as soon as you are making commit, it will pull up that thing and create a WAR file and push it to the container. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. All right, and where would other aspects come into picture, like Tomcat and Maven? Would that be required for whatever the code that has been committed to display on the web services, or Tomcat is kind of an Apache, like whatever the
IIS server? I think you.
Server. Yeah, IIS server that's going to.
Yes,
okay.
Tomcat is a plain web application server where you can deploy any jar application, jar WAR file, Java WAR file.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Can I make an attempt to answer a little in this?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, to answer the gentleman's question, see, first, to automate anything, we have to understand how we manually do it first. only then you can actually automate it. So manually, what is will be done is you are checking in code, you're creating code, you're checking, and then you're pushing it into some sort of repository. In this case, it happens to be Git. Then the next step you would do with once you have checked in code is to run a build on it so that you check whether the code compiles and can be packaged. So that would be in this particular case, we are using Maven as a tool to do that. And the next step manually, what you will do is you will take the packaged WAR file and then push it onto a server and then transfer it to a server which is running some sort of web server there. So in this case, it happens to be Tomcat. And then you deploy it into push it into Tomcat's whatever folder you want to push it into, and make the index.js appear wherever it wants to. I don't know much about Tomcat, but basically any web server will do the same thing. Once you understand this manual process, then we come into the automation part of it. So Jenkins is the automation tool. So Jenkins has a way of connecting into GitHub through what is called a webhook. And so whenever you check in code, automatically the Jenkins job that does the compile, build, package is kicked off. And after that, whatever Aditya explained is what happens. So the Jenkins on automatically pulls in whatever needs the Maven, and then it has connections into the VM that you want to push it into, and it knows where to put what to do with the package WAR that has been built, and does its job.
Yeah, so
I hope that added some clarity to the whole thing.
Yes, so the principle remains same. Any problem can be solved by adding one level of indirection. Okay, so build automation, if you want to add one more complexity, okay, you will add Ansible if you do not want to directly deploy it to the container. So you need to understand even before starting, what will be your manual process, and manual process you have to automate that process, basic manual process like creating a WAR and deploying it. So in that, Jenkins will really help you, and I don't think it will take much time to understand that basic process what we have done here. But yes, as we are going to add the complexity like code quality, testing, and then adding it to production environment, staging environment, making automated emails, that is where Jenkins is started becoming more and more complex, but that will be required to have a very stable environment. And similar to Jenkins, there will be services provided by AWS or Azure, which will help you to do this job if you are stuck to any particular cloud, I will say.
Thank you, Aditya, and thank you, Partha. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, so that was the thing. So right now I would like to introduce my business development manager, Mr. Aditya Saxena. So I think I have covered up one basic CI/CD, and if we want to have more complex things, we can definitely cover up in some more sessions. I would like to introduce Mr. Aditya Saxena. He is from Business Development Manager of Novelvista. So you can ask further questions to him, and I would like to have Aditya. Can you please take it ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Aditya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, thank you for attending the session. I hope you had a great time. Hope we more or less served the purpose of you attending this bootcamp, and we also would like to believe that there was something in it for everyone. I just have a couple of points that I would like to add, and just the kind of information that I would like to receive and give. Those boot camps that we conduct on a weekly basis, these are purely knowledge sharing events, and we are trying to create a community of IT professionals where it becomes really easy for people like us to find what we need. So I would just like to understand from your side, we would require a feedback from you. If you guys don't mind, we'll be sharing a feedback form with you via your emails, and it's more of a request. If you can just let us know what you liked about this. It's a proper feedback form. It will not take more than 2 minutes for you to go through it. And what could have been done better for these kind of events. Like previously, we conducted a bootcamp on AWS. That was 4 days, and we understood certain things that we had to change. So it's all about that. Apart from that, the second thing that I would like to talk about is that the entire session that we conducted today, it'll be shared on our YouTube channel, and all of you will receive the YouTube link for it. The links can also be found in our chat. Our other moderator, Sumit, he will be posting all the links of all our social media pages and everything on the chat itself. This entire thing, like our social media pages, will give you access to getting to relevant blogs, videos, articles, date for other boot camps if you find it interesting. So you can attend it over there. And yeah, more or less, that's what I wanted to convey. If you have any queries, anything you want to understand from us, you can drop me an email at aditya.saxena@novelvista.com. The email will also be in the chat session. Let me just put it in. Yeah, and that's more or less it. Sumit, can you please just drop all the links, Facebook and YouTube link and our LinkedIn link as well?
Aditya, this is Lalit. One question. You said you conduct these weekly sessions, like these boot camps. So was there one last week also, for example, or do you do one every 4 weeks?
No, we do it every single week. So 4 weeks in a month, and we try to cover different topics. So last week we conducted on AWS, Amazon Web Services, and it was for people who are beginning their journey in AWS. And this week we decided to conduct it for DevOps. And our next bootcamp is going to be decided by us today itself, so that we can start working on it and putting out the posts and everything. So that's why I'm saying for you to get easier access to all of these things that we do on a regular basis, we will highly recommend that you join our community. And yeah, that's more or less it. That's what I wanted to convey.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions that I can answer? Just give me one moment. Let me just see if we have. Yes, we have. Yeah, there are all the links. You guys can check it out as per your convenience. And well, I think Aditya, that's more or less from my side. I don't think there's anything else that I would like to convey.
Yeah, I would like to have a thank you for all the audience. They have really helped us ask very appropriate questions. So thank you for all the audience. It was really helpful to conduct all these type of sessions. Your interaction make it more and your interaction and engagement make it more fun. So that is what I would like to say. And thank you very much, everyone who has joined.
Yeah. Aditya, I just would like to add one more thing. I have received a very good suggestion from Partho. And I think this is an activity that we can all do. Let's say as many members we have in our community, you guys can let us know what is it. We can conduct a poll, and you guys can let us know what is it exactly that you're looking for. That kind of a bootcamp we can conduct. So Partha suggests that we can do enabling monitoring through cloud platform. So maybe something like that we can do. So again, it's all about if you can come onto or if you can join the community, we can conduct those polls and we can understand from you what is it that you're actually looking for and help you out in that accordance.
Yes, Partha, that will really help. In fact, that will reduce our work of thinking what next bootcamp we should conduct.
Exactly.
So if you guys can suggest us some bootcamps or some of the topics which you would like to cover up in our next sessions, that will really help us.
Sure, I'll make more suggestions. I'll join the community first, and then I'll make more suggestions, and I can also deliver some stuff.
Yes, definitely. So apart from this, we are like conducting lots of sessions on the SRE. We have a 1 week series at Novelvista level, and we have some of the things coming up for learning and development officers, and some of the things are coming up for procurement professionals. So all these summits and all these webinars are going on. But bootcamp, we make sure that we conduct some hands-on as well. So the bootcamp are different in that way. It's not only theory, there will be some hands-on. So that everyone can make their hands dirty as soon as they complete their session. So that is the only.
And so you will be sharing your the GitHub that you used. You'll be sharing because many people may not know how to create their own web app.
Definitely,
Okay.
I will share that thing. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Then please let us know.
Thank you.
I had a question. Is there a subscription that we can subscribe to, knowing the next topic for the next week's bootcamp, aside from the social media that you've put in there?
There isn't anything, there isn't anything as of yet. We have started conducting these boot camps as of very recently. And so there's no particular subscription thing, but yes, we are planning on it. As I said, I'll be emailing every single one of you, asking for your suggestions, feedbacks, and other things that we can do. So coming up on that topic of having a monthly subscription thing, yes, we'll be working on it. And anybody who is willing to join us for that on that subject is more than welcome. So
Yes, I can subscribe to the email list that I can get an email ahead of time that this is the next week's topic.
Right.
And considering if it interests me, I can join or make a call there. That'll be
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Today's session was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.